Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I would like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, whose presence here continues to this day. Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge and thank them for sharing this land with us. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. I will start by introducing the committee members and staff. I am the committee chair, and my name is Tom Plamondon, and the remaining members are as follows. The vice chair is Daniel Lajeunesse, and joining him is Steve D'Angeli, Linda Duringer, and David Mango. The secretary treasurer is Prashanthi Manoharan, and planners, I think, joining us tonight are Sean Lapina. The council committee secretary is Linda Bottas, and also Ishita Sanji. The manager of development planning and development services is Marco Ramuno. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. It is also being conducted virtually through the use of Zoom technology. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded in accordance with the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are available on the Town of Aurora website and through staff at the town's planning department. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions of tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form available through town staff. Owners and agents will automatically be notified. For each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. I will briefly outline the purpose of the application or applications, and then the applicant or agent will then be given an opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as received. Presentations and deputations are limited to 5 minutes as much as possible. Following any comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name, address, and must provide this information to the secretary treasurer. Should you wish to obtain a copy of the notice of decision, again, please complete the appropriate form available through the secretary treasurer. Members of the public are reminded that text comments are not permitted during the meeting and that they will not be noted in any manner or at any time. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentations shall be made. If you require any technical assistance with your presentation, please let me know. And if you wish to speak and are currently following this meeting on the YouTube feed, you will need to turn this feed off and join the meeting live, as there is a lag between the YouTube feed and the live feed. Please ensure that all questions and/or comments are directed through me as the chair. And if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to a question or comments should the committee feel that it is appropriate. So with that, I will look to the committee for approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. Daniel, yes, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I move that we approve today's agenda as outlined in the PDF and on the website.
Thank you very much. And seconded by Linda. Thank you very much. I'll call the question. All of those in favor of the agenda? And that carries. I'll now ask members of the committee if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest and or general nature thereof. And seeing none, thank you very much. I'll now make a request to the committee to approve the minutes of the meeting held on April the 14th, 2022, and that would be meeting number 2204. Stephen, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting from April 14, 2022, meeting number 22-04, as previously circulated.
Thank you, and I'll look for a seconder. David, thank you very much. And calling that question, all of those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. So moving forward to this evening's presentation of applications. The first application this evening is for Perwick Investments Limited at 304 Wellington Street. This is a consent application and it's consent 2021-03. There are no other related files. So the applicant is seeking a provisional consent to establish a lease for a period of time exceeding 21 years on the subject property. The proposal is the purpose of this application is to establish a lease for a period of time exceeding 21 years on the subject property. The lease will apply to an existing restaurant at the southeast portion of the property currently occupied by Wendy's and Tim Hortons restaurants, associated drive-through facilities, and parking area, and that is shown on Appendix B. Based on a review of the Planning Act criteria, staff have no concerns with the requested consent application. The proposed consent application does not include any physical changes to the property, will not impact existing buildings, driveways, parking areas, or landscaping. Additionally, the subject application is not expected to adversely impact surrounding land uses. Staff are satisfied that the proposed consent application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statements 2020 and conforms with applicable provincial plans. Additional comments from departments and agencies. Building Division completed a preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division, Operational Services, Parks Operational Services, Public Works, Central York Fire, York Region, all have no comments. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, their comments are as follows: that the owner shall pay the LSRCA plan review fee in accordance with the approved fees.
Hear me? Sorry. Hello?
And just hold on, please. Sorry. And electric utilities, no objections to the application. So in conclusion, staff have reviewed the application with respect to Section 51, Paragraph 24 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, C.P.13 as amended. the provincial policy statement, provincial plans, and the town's official plan and are satisfied with the proposed consent application. Therefore, staff have no objection to the approval of consent application file number 2022-03, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix A. Good evening, sir, and welcome. Just ask you for your name and your address for the record, and if you wish to make a presentation.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name is Rafael Romero of Toronto. I'm a planner with Dillon Consulting Limited, the authorized agent working on behalf of Timwin Partnership. I'm here today seeking consent for the leased lands at 304 Wellington Street East, Ontario, shown in red on the provided site plan sketch. I have reviewed the provided conditions of approval and have concerns as it relates to condition 1 and condition 4. Related to condition 1, payment of the outstanding property taxes owed. It is my understanding that there is an existing pre-authorized payment plan with the registered owner. And I would request an amendment to this condition to recognize the existing pre-authorized payment plan, as the current condition does not permit us to fulfill this said condition of approval. Secondly, as it relates to condition 4, I was wondering, given that this is the second application for this lease property, we did make a payment to the LSRCA for said application. Given that there is no new development proposed here, I would request that if we could use that said payment used for that previous application for this condition of approval.
Okay, Raphael, thank you very much for that. I can tell you that what we would be doing is we would be considering condition number 4 separately from the consent, although it's a condition of consent. So yeah, okay, we're gonna have to deal with it. Sorry, thinking out loud. All right, and for the record, there are no public presentations or delegates for this item, if I'm not mistaken. So I will then go directly to members of the committee for any comments or questions. Daniel, please go right ahead.
I simply have a point of clarity that maybe I'll start with the chair, and if so, move to the town. The request is an open one, which is to exceed the existing 21 years, but there's no definition of the extension period. It seems to be simply greater than. Is that a normal request? Does this mean that lease is in perpetuity? Sorry, French guy, it's hard word. Forever from this point on? Can I simply have a point of clarity in terms of only referencing exceeding 21 years and not describing a specific amount of time?
Direct that to Sean. Sean, we have seen this in the past, and I believe it's because we are going beyond 21 years, if I'm not mistaken. Your mic is off, Sean.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
So if we were to, through the chair, if we were to approve this this request, this consent request, the lease could be provided in a relative forever standard status.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the way the request has been worded, that is correct. That's, I mean, without an established time period, it seems it's rather open-ended, to answer your question.
So I have one further question then along that that series of questions. Do we have any other property within the town that we have a open-ended consent beyond the current 21-year period? It might be a hard question to answer, so if you don't have that information, I understand. But what I'm just trying to understand is whether or not an open date is fairly common.
So Sean, I think, I think Raphael has dealt with this in the past as well, Raphael. So I'll let the applicant clarify that.
Yeah, through the chair. It is my understanding, well, I have dealt on other applications as it relates to consent for lease, and I believe I had one previously issued and approved by the municipality for TD Bank. I have to dig through my notes because I can't recall the address, but it is in Aurora.
You're right, Raphael, thank you. And I think there was another one involving another restaurant, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not totally sure if it was, I wanted to say the McDonald's, but I might be wrong there.
I do remember the TD one, but my belief, or my understanding, sorry, COVID brain, that was a 10-year extension. There was a specific amount of time attributed to the extension, that it was not open-ended as this one is. Am I wrong, Raphael? Sorry, I'm going to pronounce your name in a French way. I apologize. It's just my background. Do you recall if either the other restaurant or the TD request was an open-ended one?
Through the chair, from my recollection, it is, so typically what I had made, when I do these applications, I would request that it is on the condition, like we seek it in perpetuity, provided that there are no changes to the lease agreement. So in terms if they were to add said parking spaces to be included, so that would negate that this consent application, I guess you could say at that point. Or in the event that the tenant changes, then that would void that consent.
I see through the chair, I see that Brashante has a comment to add.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, just to go off of what Raphael just mentioned, the consent for a lease in excess of 21 years is a technical type of consent application. It's very common for this type of consent application under the Planning Act that the committee can make a decision on for it to be over 21 years, especially for if the property owner want to sell or mortgage or lease a property. And this consent enables owners to obtain a lease or obtain a mortgage. It's more of a technical aspect that is very commonly required by banks, especially. And I think it was the chair that asked, or sorry, Daniel asked if the town has seen these consent for lease applications. We've had a couple. There's one on First Commerce Drive that we considered, I think it was last year, around the time that 304 Wellington came in. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that consent for lease in excess of 21 years is one of the technical types of consent applications under the Planning Act.
Perfect. That the first part of that truly brought it home. So I appreciate that, Prashanti. Thank you. And with that, I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Daniel. David, I see your arm up there. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, through the chair, I thought maybe I should comment on the number of years for the consent, from my experience with Aurora. So there were some in the past in which they indicated for 25 years or 30 years, and therefore it's more than it's exceeding 21 years and would be delivered like that. It wasn't like open-ended. So basically, I'm asking for 25 years or I'm asking for 30 years. And since it's exceeding 21, then you go through this consent. So that's what I think Daniel was trying to ask. That's what I've seen before. I've never seen, this is my own experience, but there may be other ones, that is not just left like that. The applicant asks that is having 25 years, or is asking 28 years or 30 years based on whatever banking, whatever they're doing. And because it's exceeding 21 years, that's how they've been considered. I thought of just providing that comment based on my past experience being a member of the Committee of Adjustment.
Yeah.
So that's just my comment. So I have one question, if you are good, through the chair. And this question is to Rafael Romero. If you look at the comment by Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, they are actually indicating specifically the amount, and this is the $525 per Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation 2022 fee schedule. My question is, do you recall paying that amount of money, or it was different amount?
Through the chair, I do have the receipt. I am staring at it. I can provide that to you. Payment was submitted March 15th of 2021, and it is in the amount of $525.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking this is because you say you've paid before, whether it's a different amount, then I would say that's not the amount. But based on what you are saying, is to me, it's indicating that it's the same amount which like Simcoe is asking, and probably, sometimes maybe somebody looking at the records probably didn't see the records and didn't see that it was already paid. So thank you very much for that. So I just wanted to comment on your requests to remove or waive conditions, like condition number 1. The condition number 1 is just a comment I'm having here through the chair. It's basically a question of if you have any, it says payment of any outstanding. If you don't have any, then it will be created easily. So you don't necessarily have to remove it. It's just saying it's a tick. Oh yes, this one is done already. So to me, it's just something like a check box to make sure things have been done. And it's something maybe you may not just be, you shouldn't be worried about it. That's just my general comment through the chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David, for addressing both of those requests on the appendix. Yeah, I've got some comment there as well, but I'll hold off until all members of the committee have had a chance. Steve, I saw your hand up there, so please go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions. Maybe I'll just follow on David's line of thought. I do agree that for condition number 1, if you do have a prepayment plan, then those would address any outstanding taxes prior to the due date. So I think that that's covered under the condition that Rafael, that you would be current with your tax payments, and I don't think through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I could address Rafael to say why that wouldn't be the case.
Through the chair, given that this is the second time around, and we did try to, given there was last year, there was a pre-authorized payment plan. Said pre-authorized payment plan had was conditional that they would not, like they had outstanding taxes to be paid, but it allowed them the opportunity to pay it interest-free based off of that pre-authorized payment plan. So hence there was a debt on the property as recognized by finance when we tried to fulfill that condition of approval. So that's why I would request that we at least acknowledge that there is a pre-authorized payment plan here so that we can fulfill this condition of approval.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, maybe we can amend the condition to reflect any pending payments outside of the existing prepayment plan, or sorry, what's the
pre-authorized payment
plan. So perhaps we can make an amendment there, and then what I would say I would recommend that we keep condition number 4 as well for LSRCA, but say any outstanding payments, because I believe that's something that you're going to have to address with LSRCA in terms of if you've paid it, then they would have to acknowledge that it's no longer outstanding. And I think that we could address the conditions in that way. But I'll leave it to whoever creates the motion to address those. I do have a question for staff through you, Mr. Chair, and following on Daniel and David's line of thought regarding the open-ended nature. I'm trying to understand what is the basis for the original 21-year timeline, and what are the conditions that need to be evaluated. I noticed when I looked through the staff report, I'm assuming it's a typo, but it lists conditions related to a consent to sever. And, and these don't seem to be applicable here. So I just, and I know, Sean, that you weren't the planner on file here, but generally speaking, when you do, like, why do we have that limitation on the 21 years specifically? What are the concerns of leases that exceed 21 years that we should be considering and that don't apply to this file? If I could just direct that to staff, Mr. Chair.
Terrific. So either Prashante or Sean. Sean, have you seen very many of these? Have you dealt with very many?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is the first one I've actually dealt with. So to answer your question, I would have to just look into it a little further to see if it's an explicit requirement under the Planning Act. So in terms of that number of years, 21.
Steve, I know that 21 years has been a trigger point in the past, and I'm not totally, I may not be totally right on this, but it does have to do with the ability of the property owner to secure financing, and it's more legal than anything else. It's not really a planning matter as much as it is a legal matter, as stipulated under other laws that do apply here, and that's why the 21 is what's triggering it coming forward. To go beyond what is normal, so most leases are 5-10-year leases with options to renew another 5 or another 5. So 20 years is a typical lease period that you can negotiate up front. And then beyond that, it's sort of, well, we're basically starting from scratch. And I think that's what the trigger may be here. It's in excess of 20 years, being 21. So I'm pretty sure that that's the rationale behind it. Yes, David, did you want to add something to that?
I want to add, through the chair, that's part of the Planning Act. Okay, that's part of the Planning Act. When you want lease more than 21 years,
Then
that's what
yeah,
you have to go through this. It's part of the Planning Act.
You
You can Google maybe after this and so on, just let's say Planning Act, lease at least 21 years, it will come up and it will describe all that stuff.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted to point out.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, David, and Mr. Chair. I guess my concern is here, as I'm looking at the staff report, I'm seeing, I'm trying to understand why the concern and why it is in the Planning Act that it needs to come before us over a certain period, and what the concerns are that should be evaluated. And when I look at the staff report, I'm seeing, one considering an application for consent to sever lands, regard shall be had to criteria of section 51 of the Planning Act. This includes, among other things, matters of provincial interest, conformity with the official plan, suitability of the land for the purpose in which it is to be subdivided. It seems to me like there's been a cut and paste of consent to sever. So I just want to understand if this is because of legal financing, are we being advised by staff that has been considered appropriately here, and that the opinion is relevant? That I personally, I'm not the expert here, so I rely on the staff report. What I'm seeing criteria that were considered to do with a consent to sever, and I'm not seeing the criteria that have been mentioned by the committee members here. So that's that's my concern here. And as you know, in addition to what Daniel is saying, so now we're saying we're going to approve it in perpetuity, you know, a lease potentially. And I'm just trying to get the comfort level that the proper analysis has been done here. So that's my concern, you know, here. And then the other, you know, the other question here, I don't see a condition about subletting, and so does that have, you know, an impact here? So I'm just trying to wrap my head around what are the risks of a longer term lease, and specifically a lease in perpetuity, or a minor consent in perpetuity here. And are we all comfortable that those risks have been mitigated and assessed and deemed either not to be a significant risk or are sufficiently mitigated in this consent application? So I guess I would bring that forward, and maybe, you know, through you, Mr. Chair, ask if staff are comfortable if they're with their recommendation, and then we'll go based on the staff, or at least I will go based on the staff recommendation.
So Sean, if you want to comment on Steve's concern there, that you have vetted through the process here, you've vetted through the appropriate sections of the Planning Act, et cetera, that you're comfortable with your recommendation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in reviewing the application, as well as the staff report, I would agree that perhaps the staff report could have included some additional information speaking to it, more so be related to an administrative matter for the most part. So I would agree with you there, Steve, that perhaps some additional detail would have been, you know, it would have been, I think the report could have been, you know, again, included some of that language. But my opinion, and again, just based on the information in the application itself, this is more so of an administrative exercise. And I think it's important as well just to keep in mind that there are no physical changes taking place to the property. It is a consent application, but it most definitely is not a consent to the property itself. There are no changes taking place to the property at all. This is, again, more so just addressing a Planning Act requirement. It's really more so related to leasing for sure. And through the circulation that took place, I had reviewed the comments prior to the meeting, and from a zoning standpoint, I mean, when you look at the uses, this is a commercial zone. The use of, restaurant is permitted here. So I think through the review that took place, no concerns were identified. And I would just reiterate once again, as referenced through the application and by the applicant, that more so an administrative exercise.
Fair enough.
For what that's worth, yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied.
Thank you, Sean. Linda, any comments or questions?
Thank you. Through you, the chair. No, not. I think it's been discussed. All right. I understood from what Prashanti had said that if any changes were to be made, it would be null and void, and they'd have to start again anyway if they did. And so the 21 years is really irrelevant. It's just a guideline according to the Planning Act. So I'm fine with it. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, further comment, David?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you would, instead of putting a perpetuity the way it is, making it 25 or 30 years, it's still exceeding 21 years. As I've said, from the ones I've had with Aurora in my past times as a committee of adjustment member, there were years. So the applicant will be asking for 25 years or 30 years. And the fact that it's more than 21 years, it was considered through this consent. It required a consent by the committee of adjustment, rather than just leaving it as, just no limit. To be honest, I've never seen one which is just open-ended.
So David, let me just circle back with you for 1 second. So I have to say that this came back to the committee. You're right, Prashanti, it was first commercial. And I remember there was a lawyer who made a presentation to the committee on that one, representing the property owner. And I would love to have known whether or not it was time sensitive. However, looking at the conditions here, Raphael, you've got condition 5 there that says you've got 2 years to clear these conditions. So I'm actually, along with my other committee members, I'm actually comfortable leaving the LSRCA the way it is, because the onus would then fall on you to come back with LSRCA and say, hey, here's my receipt. It references this particular consent application. Here's the number. Here's what it is. It might have been, as David mentioned, just an administrative note coming back to the town on circulation. So, on that basis, I would suggest that we leave that condition alone. Like I said, you've still got 2 years to clear that. Steve, just recognize your hand there. And I'll come back to you. And I'll also, with regards to having it left open-ended, for some reason, it sticks in my mind too, David, that there might have been, it was in excess of 21, but not to exceed, whether it was 30 or 35 or what the number was. I recognize you there, Raphael. I'll come to you as well. But that's certainly something that that I think if this was circulated through legal department, and maybe I should ask staff, Prashanti, was this circulated through legal?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it was circulated to our legal department, and they expressed no concern. And the other, just to go back to the timelines, the Planning Act stipulates a lease in excess of 21 years to not exceed 99 years. So I think, correct. Yeah, so it's that's what the Planning Act says. So I think in the past, sometimes some mortgages or some leases probably pre-approved with a certain time frame, which is why I believe in the past these consent applications were a little bit more specific in 25 years, 30 years. But the way that the application was filed with the town was for a consent in excess of 21 years. And with the Planning Act, it is not able to exceed 99 years.
Okay.
So I hope that helps.
Raphael, I will, let me just thank you, Prashanti. Steve, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I was just, with respect to condition number 4, I was just wondering if I could make a suggestion. I think given that condition number 5, as you pointed out, gives the applicant 2 years to satisfy the prior 4 or the preceding 4 conditions, that we could just do a slight modification to 4, which is that the owner shall pay any outstanding LSRCA plan review fees in accordance. So just similar to condition 1 above. And condition 1, I would suggest an amendment, and I'm happy to bring these amendments forward as part of my motion, but just to put in front, recognizing the existence of a pre-authorized payment plan, payment of any outstanding property taxes owing to date outside of the existing pre-authorized payment arrangement. So just those modifications, and I think It still keeps the intent of the conditions, but allows the applicant to discuss with LSRCA to determine if they are in fact outstanding. And if they are, then they would need to be paid. And similarly, condition number 1, it would allow the flexibility to continue with the pre-authorized payment plan. So I just put that forward for the committee's consideration.
Let me just go to Raphael there for a moment. Raphael, does that satisfy with those amendments? If they do come forward, would those satisfy your concerns?
Through the chair, yes, it would. Again, I appreciate your time and effort into analyzing what a consent application is. And for the record, I was the agent on behalf of the 41st Commerce Drive, the TD Bank. The application was C-2021-07 for record, but that did not have a restrictive timeline.
It did not. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Although the max is not with
99 years, that's news to me. So learn something new every day.
All right. Anyone? Yes, Steve.
Sorry, yeah, Mr. Chair, and perhaps we could just check with staff to see if they have any concerns with those proposed amendments as well. The applicant seems okay with them, but before we bring them forward, because as you mentioned, this has gone through legal, I don't think there are any material changes, but just it would be great to know if staff's supportive as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no concerns with the changes at all.
Okay. So on that basis then, I will look to the committee then for a motion on the application. Steve.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve consent application C-2021-03, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report, with the following minor amendments. With respect to condition number 1, we add the following text, or we draft the condition or amend the condition as follows. 1, recognizing the existence of a pre-authorized payment plan, payment of any outstanding property taxes owing to date outside of the existing pre-authorized payment arrangement. Let me see, for the subject properties, and the secretary, and then the following would continue as drafted. And then the amendment for condition number 4 is simply, it will read as follows: that the owner shall pay any outstanding LSRCA plan review fees in accordance with the approved fee policy. And that would be my motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Look to the committee for a seconder. Daniel, thank you very much. Calling the question, all of those in favor of the motion? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Raphael. Appreciate you being here, and wish you a good evening.
Yeah, and go Leafs go too.
Go Leafs go. Saw the jerseys behind.
Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. All right. Members of the committee and staff, I am going to apologize right now because I have had a computer meltdown as we were going through that particular item. So I am now reduced to having to suggest to the committee that we recess for about 5 minutes, if you will. I will actually have to leave and dial back into the meeting again. So I've got to now switch things around. I've just been waiting for my computer here. It froze, I rebooted, and it's just going in circles. So what I'm going to have to do is move to a different location and well, not just a different location. I'm going to have to go and get another computer, power it up, bring my notes up, and unfortunately continue the meeting.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. If possible, the vice chair can continue on and introduce the application while you continue on, if that's okay.
If Daniel, if you are prepared to step in here, I would gladly pass the chair to you.
Prepared, but I am willing to help move forward if you so wish, Tom. Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. So.
That would be great. Yeah, and while we're getting through the next item, I'll see if I can't get things reorganized here. So let me pass the chair to Daniel, and Daniel, I'm sure you'll be able to pick up on the essence of the next application coming forward.
Thank you. So I move that we move to consent application C-2022-02. This is a consent by Gregory Irons for 144 Hillview Road. The planner for this consent was Sean DePena, which is on the call here today. The purpose of the proposed consent application is to sever a portion of the subject property municipally known as 144 Hillview Road to convey it to the abutting property to the east municipally known as 145 Hillview Road. The applicant is requesting a consent in order to accommodate the following. A, sever a parcel of land from 144 Hillview Road, Part 2, with an approximate area of 382.2 square meters or 0.095 acres to be conveyed and added to 145 Hillview Road, Part 1. I do not want to read all of the items. I'm just going to head over to the ones that I have highlighted. Just going to move forward here. I apologize. Okay. The official plan does designate the area as private parkland and environmental protection and is part of the stable neighborhoods. The private parkland designation is located throughout the majority of the property and is applied central to the property as well as to the north and south sections of this lot. I'll skip to the environmental protection. The designation is located within a small portion of the property along the northeastern section of the lot, along the side yard property line to the east. The stable neighborhood designation is located within a small portion of the property along the northwestern section of the lot, along the side yard property to the west. Planning comments. When considering the application for consent, the several lands regard shall be had to the criteria of section 51 (24) of the Planning Act. This includes, among other things, matters of provincial interest, conformity to the official plan and adjacent plans of subdivision, sustainability of the land for the purposes of which it was to be subdivided, the dimension and shape of the proposed land, and the adequacy of utility and municipal services. Based on the review of the Planning Act criteria, as outlined earlier, staff have no concerns with the land severed as proposed. Staff note that the configuration of severed portion Part 2 runs parallel to and aligns with the current side yard property line to the west of 145 Hillview Road. As such, compatibility from a lot pattern standpoint will be achieved and an irregular shaped parcel will not result. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposed severance is generally compatible with the surrounding area and will not result in a negative impact on the adjacent properties and neighborhood. In addition to this, there's also no conflict with respect to conformity with the applicable official plan policy. I'll move on to additional comments from the building division. The PZR was completed on March 25th. Engineering division has reviewed and has no objections. Operations Services Park, we have reviewed the document. I will read this because they do have comment. We have reviewed the documentation for the property associated with the above noted application. I have no concerns with the property line adjustment. However, it should be noted that if a new fence is installed, however, it should be noted that a new fence is, let me try again one last time. However, it should be noted that if a new fence is installed to accommodate a new lot line and old fence removed, trees could be impacted. Therefore, any tree removals shall be accommodated within the Town of Aurora tree bylaw number 5850-56. The Central York Fire Services have read and have no comments. York Region have no comments. The LSRCA, I will read as there is one comment. Based upon our review of the submitted information and support of the application, the proposal is consistent and in conformity with the natural heritage and natural hazard policy of the applicable provincial, regional, and local plan. On this basis, we recommend that any approval of this application be subject to the following condition. A, that the owner shall pay the LSRCA plan review fee in accordance with the approved fee policy. Electra, I'll go straight to the comment that all proposed billboard signs and other structure associated with the project or plan must maintain minimal clearance to the existing overhead or underground electrical distribution systems as specified by the applicable standards, codes, and acts reference. Actually, I will skip the other two as they are fairly standard and I do not believe they apply directly. And in attachment, we do have the recommendations. We do have a surveyor's real property report, proposed severance sketch, and also a surveyor's real property report. Sorry, the first one was for 144 Hillview Road, and the second one is for 145 Hillview. Let me return to my screen. I do believe we have Gregory with us here today. Welcome. I just want to do a mic check to make sure that there is no delay, that you are live and you are muted.
Good evening, Vice Chair. How are you doing?
You. Very well, thank you. So I will leave it to you now if you wanted to make any comments, make a presentation regarding the consent in front of us.
Okay. To start off, I thought that was very good of you for someone who just got put on the spot like that. I thought you did a very good job.
Thank you.
I did send through the town a quick presentation. I'm not sure if Prashanti is able to pull it up, if possible.
I believe we can. Prashanti, I know you're muted. Are you able to bring up the presentation provided by Gregory?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Greg, if you have the presentation, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I did send you my slide deck. If you give me 1 minute to pull it up, it shouldn't be too long. Sorry about that.
No worries, Gregory.
Yeah. There we go. Slide start. It won't take too long. It's there you go. Share screen.
No worries. That's technology is a theme today.
Hopefully you all can see that.
Yes.
Okay.
Proceed.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Just to quickly give you a brief background and in a nutshell, what I'm trying to achieve is the lot line between myself, which is 145 Hillview Road, and my neighbor 144 Hillview Road, has been in existence for the last, I think it's 46 years. What I'm trying to formalize is make a match between what's on paper and the physical boundary that exists as of today, and move over that portion of land between us. I think it's registered under Part 2 of the survey, and bring that into legal title in my possession on 145. This slither of land and the significance of us encroachment onto 144 was recently brought to my attention in 2019. And since then, I've been working with the neighbor to incorporate this into my land. So I'll just got to quickly, I won't keep this too long because it's, hopefully you'll agree, a fairly simple application. But I have just a quick slideshow just to kind of get my point across, and visual, to see this visually might be the easiest. Just a quick background on the property history. The fence was erected by my previous, unfortunately passed away earlier this year, but by Harry Lumsden. And he admitted to installing the fence on the land to in its current position in 1968. In 2012, the property was purchased by the previous owners, the Chitrin family, and they renovated it to the property into today's condition. My wife and I, we bought this property in 2018, and we've been staying there since. In the mid to the end of 2020, we formally engaged Mr. Lumsden to try see how we could take possession of that slither of land, and since then we've been, conducting various surveys, engaging with legals, and this is where we find ourselves today. So it's been a 2.5-year process to get where we are right now, and we all, both parties are in agreement to try and move this forward. This is just a basic survey for those who hope. There could be people listening live, and maybe the staff. I just want to try to bring everybody into the loop. The blue portion there is 145 Hillview Road. That's where my wife, our family resides. The green line is the acreage of 144, and the red slither between the two portions there is where the physical fence line is, and where I'm trying to incorporate into the property of 145. There are some, the major reason why we're trying to do this is that there are some physical properties that, physical buildings that are encroaching onto the property of 145. They're highlighted in red. There's a pool pump house and a pool shed house that have been there for the last, well, as far as I can figure out, the last 46 years plus. So I just want to run through some historical slides just to show you. This is a photograph from the York Maps. They have quite a nice website there that you can pull up historical photos. This particular one is from 1978. It shows the existing pool house that it stands as of today. And what's interesting with this map is it's from the York Region Maps, and it shows the estimated lot lines, and it shows it where the physical lot lines are, but not where the actual lot lines are as it stands, and which I'm trying to correct. So this would indicate what I'm trying to do more accurately, as opposed to what is physically there. This was also taken in 2002. It's a bit more clearer, but you can see the shed line still there. And if you use your imagination slightly, you can see the fence line running to the left of that fence. This is when the Chitrin family took over and they renovated the property. This is currently today. You can see both the pool shed and the pump house as it stands. What I'm trying to show you here is that multiple generations have shared and enjoyed this slither of land, and we're hoping to retain it and keep it as current in today's use. Those are the two pool sheds. The one on the left is the pool shed, garden shed, and it worked out into my COVID project where I turned it into a sauna. And on the right is the pool pump housing the various pool equipment. On the left photo, you can see in the background there, if you look past my various items, you'll see the fence line, and that is the current, where the current fence is of today. So to conclude, we've gone through the zoning review. I've dealt with the town. It complies with R3 zoning. It has been a 2.5-year process between myself and the previous property owner, Harry of 144, and now his current executive, Vernon Thomas. we working together to try formalize this and move forward to move the title into 145. It mimics what is on the Aurora and the York region lot line map is. I've established that it's been there for the last 46 years, since 1968. And again, there's going to be no physical changes to the boundaries, and there's no incentive for me to develop. All I'm trying to do is just move it into my title to enjoy the property. Pretty much that's it. I'm open to questions, and I'd like to hear what you all say. So thank you very much, Vice Chair and Chairman.
Thank you. It seems like it's another interesting COVID project to get this all resolved. So I thank you.
Yes.
To the town, sorry, the presentation, the screen is a little bit different. To the town, I do not see any, oh, perfect, thank you.
Sorry.
I do not see any members of the public wishing to comment. Am I correct?
Through you, Vice Chair, we have no members of public for this application.
Thank you. With that, I'll move to my colleagues who has questions, who would like to go first. Steve, perfect, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, a question to staff, and this may be a very silly question and administrative, but here we have a consent to sever, and if I'm reading this correctly, who's bringing it's to consent to sever a portion of 144 and convey it to 145, but the application is being brought forward by 145 to sever lands on 144. Normally, wouldn't we see the owner of 144 bringing forward the consent to sever and to convey to 145? And I don't doubt you, Mr. Irons, that you've discussed with your neighbor here, but are we not approving the severance of a property where the owner of the property is not present and represented here in the staff report?
Through you, Mr. Vice Chair. Yes, you're correct in that basically everything you've described is accurate. But in the application form, and I'm not able to pull it up right now, that is something that we did notice as well. And essentially authorization was provided from the property owner for Mr. Irons to essentially act on their behalf. Everything was signed. In our opinion, authorization has been granted in order for Mr. Irons to facilitate this process.
Understood. Thank you. That's my only concern, my only question. I'm good to proceed. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anybody else who would wish to ask questions? Dave, sorry. Yes, please go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to just mute myself. Anyway, thank you, Steve. Actually, you read my mind.
He does that.
So the other one is this actually will be to staff. There is a comment in the comment section by the Operations Services Parks. They're talking about, if a new fence is installed to accommodate the new lot line and the old fence remove trees could be impacted. Therefore, any tree removal shall be in accordance with the Town of Aurora tree bylaw. I've known that in some cases you would have that as part of the condition, but it's not here. So is this issue, if it happens, is going to be dealt with as part of the building permit at that time? So like you have enforcement officers and they know that, somebody is doing something, and then you contact the owner to get to resolve this issue if there will be any trees impacted. How are you going to, the question, how are you going to follow up if it's not mentioned anywhere, not necessarily as a condition, but is there any way how you would do it? Maybe a building permit? That's what you are thinking?
Through you, Mr. Vice Chair, I believe, so the applicant both the owner would be required to comply with the town's tree bylaw. So I believe it's something, in the event that any trees were to be removed, then of course the owner would need to contact the town and speak to us about that approval process. However, if Mr. Irons can confirm, I don't believe any tree removals are, any removal of trees are contemplated here at this time.
At the moment, there's zero. We're going to leave as is. I mean, the fence is, unfortunately, it's 45 years old, so there's a bit of it's moved and it's not in the best condition. It's probably within our 5-year plan to put in a more reputable fence, although we like the wildness of being part of his the estate there. There's maybe 1 or 2 trees that have fallen over and taken down my fence, but at the moment there's no big there's no trees within the way, and of course whatever we do would be within according to the town's bylaw. So I'm happy to put that in. It doesn't affect me if you want to add that as a condition, but I think it would be it's already written within the bylaws of the town. So whatever you decide, I'll be happy to approve or to move forward with that.
Thank you. David, do you have other questions you'd like to bring forward?
And that was just a comment, so it's up to town staff. Because the way I look at it is something which can be addressed at the building permit. Basically, it will depend on the owner being honest and let the town that, oh, I'll be cutting trees. Or it will be Mr. Irons' neighbor calling the town that, oh, I'm seeing trees being cut here. Can you send the enforcement officers to check? And they need to come back here, or it will be dealt with the building permit staff. So it's not a big issue to me.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Linda,
I thought of just raising it. I thought of just raising it. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Linda, I did see your hand going up. Do you, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the vice chair. My question was exactly what Steve had brought up about the name of how the applicant was taking somebody else's land or straightening it out. I realize you're just straightening out what is existing there and that has been existing and it's just never been marked. So I have no problem with that. I understand it, but I also wondered why it was done in reverse to normality would be the other way around. Yeah, but that's fine. Thank you.
Excellent. I guess I refer to you as Tom in this moment. Tom, do you have anything else, anything you would like to bring forward?
Actually, on this application, I'm satisfied. It's not uncommon for someone to, have someone appear as their agent or have someone appear with authorization from an adjacent property owner. So I'm okay with it, and nice to see that what you thought was owned will at least at this point now become much more clear. It's certainly from a legal perspective, I have no problems with this application at all.
Thank you, Tom. And I'll mirror that. I'm pleasantly surprised frequently when we hear neighbors here. They're not as cordial as this arrangement seems to have been. So it's good to see neighbors working together to get our papers aligned with reality. So I have no questions, no further comments on this application. So that said, I'll move to the committee to bring forward a move. Yes, Steve, please go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Vice Chair, I move that we approve consent application C-2022-02, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Tom, thank you. All in favor? Excellent. Gregory, as you noticed, that passed unanimously. So I thank you for your time and good luck. And I'm glad it all worked out.
No,
so
sorry, I just wanted to say I've unfortunately Mr. Lumsden is no longer with us, but he was one of the most incredible people I've ever met. And the fact that he was going along with this is just, you don't really find people like this. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. So thank you, all of you, for your time.
Thank you. It's always great to hear about good Aurora neighbors. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
With that, I think my time has been served. I will hand the mantle, the proverbial mallet or whatever it's called, back to Tom. And hopefully everything is back to normal on your side.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for stepping up. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, this is kind of odd for me. My wife and I have both been working from home for the last couple of years, and you know, to have 2 or 3 computers all going at the same time for both of us, and to have mine just absolutely crash is one of the hazards, I guess, of and fallouts for COVID. You know what? I think I'm okay to continue here, so let's give it a whirl. All right, moving on to the next application this evening. This is minor variance application 2022-15 for the Spooner family at 46 Mosley Street in Aurora. There is a related planning application. It's a site plan. It's not. I don't believe it's an R there. It should be an A. Site plan application 2022-10. And this application, the owner applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to facilitate a 1- and 2-story rear addition to the existing dwelling. The following relief is being requested. A, Section 24.497.3.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.5 meters. The applicant is proposing a 1-story addition, which is 1.2 meters to the interior side property line. That was A. B. Section 24.497.3.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters beyond the main rear wall of the adjacent dwelling. The applicant is proposing a 1-story addition, which is 2.5 meters to the exterior property line. C, Section 24.497.3.3 of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum footprint of 235 square meters. The applicant is proposing a 1- and 2-story addition with a footprint of 264.1 square meters. And D, Section 24.497.3.3 of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum gross floor area of 370.0 square meters. The applicant is proposing a 1- and 2-story addition, and this is incorrect in the staff report with a footprint. It should be a gross floor area of 411.8 square meters. The proposal is, or the applicant is proposing a 1-story rear addition and 2nd-story addition to the existing garage with a total proposed GFA of approximately 164.7 square meters. It was noted that the reason the applicant is making the application and reasons for not complying with the zoning bylaw are as follows. Setbacks. The existing home and garage were constructed in 1853 foundations and footprints. Setbacks are in accordance with the bylaws of that time. Didn't know we had bylaws in 1853 for the town of Aurora. The architectural design would be seriously flawed if today's setbacks are applied. Size of addition, this growing family needs more space. Thus, both owners need an office at home. The family loves the location and would love to have the addition. Moving on to comments received from departments or agencies. The building division completed its PZR on April 12th, 2022. Engineering division, no concerns to the variance application. Operational services parks. There are trees situated on the subject property that may require removal and may be impacted by excavation or disturbance due to the demolition/construction. This may result in irreparable damage to the root systems and/or canopy to one or more of these trees. Documentation received does not indicate any tree removal. However, there is the potential for impact of trees that requires formal confirmation. In view of the above, staff recommend that the committee impose conditions as outlined in the appendix. Central York Fire Services, no comments received. Region of York has no comments on the application. LSRCA, no comments on the application as it is located outside the area governed by OREG 179-06 under the Conservation Authorities Act. Electra, no objections to the approval. There were no written submissions at the time of the writing of the report. Planning staff have reviewed the application with respect to section 45, paragraph 1 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 C.P.13 as amended, and are of the opinion that the requested variances do meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act for granting minor variances. Staff recommend approval of the requested variances subject to the conditions as outlined in Appendix A. And in Appendix A, there are a number of conditions with sub-bullets, and I believe there's 2 conditions, but as I mentioned, with sub-bullets. So I'll turn to the applicant and welcome you to the meeting this evening. I believe it's Dylan DePass who's with us. Welcome. And for the record, your name and address, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak to you guys today. My name is Dylan DePass, and I'm one of the owners of 46 Mosley Street here in Aurora. Also joining me on the call is my father, Byron DePass, and our general contractor, Greg Kent, both of whom have kind of guided me through this process and have a better understanding of some of the technical details involved in the renovation are here just in case there's any questions I'm not unable to answer. So I just have a very quick presentation for you. I just want to give you a little bit, tell you a little bit about my family and myself, and also give you some context to the motivations for the renovation and the reasons for the variances. So yeah, as I said, I'm Dylan DePass. I was actually raised here in Aurora, went to primary school at St. Joe's and high school at Cardinal Carter, went to Ottawa and went college, university, that kind of thing. And I work as a full-time senior computer scientist at Adobe Systems, and I do work from home. And then my partner was raised in Etobicoke, and she works as a marketing director for MIQ Canada. Next slide, please. A few months into the pandemic, we found out we're having a baby, so we decided to move to Aurora to be closer to my family. In November 2020, we purchased 46 Mosley Street after falling in love with this area. I've always hung around it when I was a kid, so definitely has a meaning for me. We purchased it from a builder who did a complete renovation of the house that was on the property here. And then, of course, in March 2021, we welcomed our son to the family, and we have another baby coming in August. And then there is a little bit more history for me in Mosley Street. I did go to kindergarten at what was once called Mary Poppins Childcare back in the 80s. So it's now called the Magic Tree. So we're hoping to send my kids there as well. So we really want to stay on Mosley Street. We really love it here. Next slide, please. So why the renovation? So basically the entire first floor of this house is completely open concept. So there's no place for a kids area or a place to put an office. We also have no basement. There is like kind of a crawl space area where our furnace is and our water heater, but you can't really do anything in there. It's very small. And so that means there's very little storage in this house, no place to put things. And, over the years, you definitely collect lots of things. So it's kind of a requirement for us. And then currently 2 of the 4 bedrooms are being used as offices. As I mentioned, we both work from home full time. So that's, it's key to have a little bit of office space there for us. And then of course we have family and friends who come and visit us. So we need a guest room as well. So we've got 2 kids, we need 2 offices, and then we got our bedroom as well. So, and a guest room. Next slide, please. So the setbacks, as mentioned by Mr. Chair, the existing home and garage were constructed in 1853 foundations and footprints. So the setbacks are in accordance with that time. And if we tried to kind of design the extension, with those setbacks in mind, or without those setbacks in mind, it would be a flawed design. Next slide. So the other variance was the size of the addition. So obviously, as I mentioned, we need more space for our growing family. We both need offices. We looked into putting in a basement to kind of make up some of that space as part of the extension, but we, figured it was going to end up costing a lot of money to do a basement. So we kind of took that option off the table. And then it's also a very deep lot. So it's 216 feet deep. So even with the extension, there's a large amount of space left, green space left on the property. So what are the impacts to the streetscape? No significant change to the streetscape. The peak of the garage will be raised slightly, but that's about it. And the addition is at the back of the house. So there's no, you wouldn't see anything else from the front of the house. At the back of my property, the north view, it's basically a parking lot and like basketball court there. It's a rehab center. So there's no impact to them. There's no building there anywhere close to the back. The east view is it's a 4-plex property. So it's actually a parking lot there. So they wouldn't affect them too much as well. And then on the west view, there's a house there. It's got about a 20-foot wall with no windows. It goes back pretty far. So they wouldn't even be able to see this extension. And so there'd be a little impact on them as well. And that's it. Thank you so much again for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you very much, Dylan. And thank you for putting the context, particularly your family history here in the community. And congratulations on the growing family. That's wonderful to see. I do not believe that there is anyone from the public on this application, so I will turn to members of the committee with comments, questions to the applicant. Steve, go right ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, I would just like to make a comment more than anything. I am very supportive of this application. It's a beautiful house, beautiful family. Congratulations. And I want to say, Mr. DePass, if you probably haven't seen Committee of Adjustment meetings, they're not normally the most exciting things, but we as a committee have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, if we were to approve this variance, it would probably be the first one where we approved going over the gross floor area that was approved in stable neighborhoods following a large public consultation process, big discussion. You've probably heard comments about monster homes, and I think I really want to commend you on your presentation, because we have had applications before us. We have not been supportive of going over the gross floor area because of the impacts to the community, the streetscape, everything that you've addressed here in your presentation, and obviously walking the site. But no impact to your neighbors, no impact to there is no neighbor on the back end, very little change from the streetscape. And as our chair has said many times, he's questioned where the hardship is, and you've explained to us very well why you need this extra space. You don't have a basement, you don't have, you have a growing family. So I just want to commend you, because really, as far as I'm concerned, you've done really a a fantastic job. At least I don't want to speak to the rest of the committee, but at least explaining to me why this should be I believe the first example where I would consider going over the gross floor area, because there is a hardship here. There is no impact to the community. You've clearly done your due diligence here, and you are clearly taking into account the impact in the community, and you want to be a partner in the community and not just create a large home for resale value. So that's just a comment that I'd like to make. As I say, I am very supportive of this application, and should it go through, I just want to wish you very well with your family. So
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
that's my comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Steve. I'll move over to Daniel.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd like to sort of mirror Steve with a few slight caveats. I'm personally not a fan of coming to the committee to exceed bylaws because the space doesn't fit. However, and I'm just starting with the negative, but I'll just repeat that point. I'm not a fan of coming to us and asking, I want an extra meter, or I don't want to comply, etc., because I bought the house and I like the house, but I just liked it if it was 10 times bigger. What I'm not seeing, or sorry, the negatives is hard on this on this point, but what I'm seeing from your presentation is that is not what is being requested here. The home that you are proposing is an extension of the home that is there. The streetscape stays the same. The neighbors, whether it be with the parking lot or an extension of their own, you're expanding in a similar type of way. And as a result, the desired look and feel of the neighborhood is maintained. That might be one of the reasons why there are no letters against you in this proposal or in this meeting here today. I have no clue if you met with your neighbors. It is a little bit difficult in this day and age, but based on your presentations, the photos, and the actual way that your addition is being proposed here today, my first and main concern has been addressed, and I am supportive. So thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Linda or David? Linda, please go right ahead.
Hi, and thank you through the chair, and congratulations once again on your new family. That'll be awesome.
Thank you.
What I did enjoy the presentation. I'm glad you mentioned how important it was not to have a basement there, and any growing family and all the stuff you put somewhere, you need to put that stuff, and there's always stuff, and I get it, and I can see it. And that was a big turning point too, not having that space and not having a basement altogether, and the cost of underpinning and doing that, it is a lot, and might as well get some more space above ground with a little bit more light. That was good. I also appreciate the fact that the addition that you'll be doing follows the urban planning design for stable neighborhoods. It's very important in the area of the old town, and especially on Mosley now, because Mosley is going to have, a wider sidewalk that'll lead to the new community center, the cultural center. It'll be the main drag that'll be going down to that. They're going to, fix that all up and make it all special. Your house will be very, very lovely. It'll be on the road where the sidewalk is as well, right? And that the fact that you're doing it in the board and batten and keeping within it, and the streetscape will still blend in. It's perfect. I enjoy your addition. I looked at all the plans, and it was nice to talk to you, and I'm quite in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. David, any comments or questions?
The chair, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I have no comments. Other members have already addressed what maybe would have mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you, David. I'll just echo the comments as well, Mr. DePass. And I suppose, the one comment that wasn't made that I was almost expecting someone from the committee to make was gosh, I mean, the existing homes, both neighbors are very close to their property lines. Certainly the one to the west of you is pretty doggone on the property line. It's extremely close. When we look at side yard setback reductions where an existing house is as close as your neighbor's is, it does raise concern. And you're very articulate, and you picked up on probably the biggest concern that we would have had, and that is, are there habitable windows on that neighbor's property, looking into your property and looking into habitable windows, which gave me relief because there are none. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, this is good. And I'm just curious, did you actually speak to your neighbors? I'm just more out of curiosity. And obviously there are no letters before the committee expressing any concern or opposition. So just out of curiosity, it's one of the things that we often suggest to people when they come to the committee, especially if we feel that there's been some issues that might have come up. But did you talk to them at all, or?
Yeah, I did talk to the owner of the fourplex, Mary Ann. She had no concerns about it, and she was supportive of it. I haven't talked to the other neighbor, Brendan, since the notice has gone out, but I have talked to him previous years about it, that we were planning to do an extension, and kind of gave him some ideas of exactly what we were planning, and he seemed okay with it at the time. So I haven't bothered to go over, unfortunately, but yeah.
No, that's very commendable. And Steve also mentioned that, yes, this committee we're always looking at the hardship. The rules and regulations are there for a reason. Obviously, the old town and the older parts of our community are obviously a little bit different. And you can't sometimes just apply a current regulation to an older area. And that's why this committee exists. I have absolutely no problem supporting this application. So I will look to the committee then for a motion on the application. Daniel, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I move that we approve minor variance MV-2022-15 as outlined in the report, subject to the conditions 1 and 2 with the multiple bullets in Appendix A.
Thank you very much. Daniel, look for a seconder, please. Linda, thank you very much. Calling the question, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. So, Mr. DePass, again, our congratulations on your baby minor variances, and also your growing family. And I'll wish you a good evening as well. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night. Cheers.
Thank you. All right. So moving on to the next application. This is minor variance 2021-18. And this is for 74 Center Street. So this application, I'll be somewhat brief here, as this has come back to the committee on a number of occasions now. The owner applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to facilitate the development of a triplex dwelling on the subject property. The following relief is being requested. A, Section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 835.0 square meters. The applicant is proposing a triplex or triplex on an existing property with a lot area of 717.8 square meters. B, Section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot frontage of 21 meters. The applicant is proposing a triplex on an existing property with a lot frontage of 18.4 meters. C, section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 2.5 meters. The applicant is proposing a detached garage, which is 0.6 meters to the interior side property line. This application does have history. On July the 8th, 2021, the Committee of Adjustment considered variances to permit a reduced lot area and frontage for the existing lot to facilitate a fourplex. The applicant was asked by the committee and residents the committee and residents cited concerns with the proposed fourplex development, its compatibility with the neighborhood character, rear yard parking, privacy, and potential tree impacts. The committee deferred the application sine die so that the applicant could meet with the neighbors and suggested that the proposal should be revised. So where we are today is where the applicant is proposing a triplex at the subject property with a total proposed lot coverage of approximately 217.041 square meters. There were related applications. Predominantly, it was the Heritage Permit Application, HPA 2020-04. And it was presented to the Heritage Committee on April the 5th, 2021. But moving forward, following the April 14th, 2022 Committee of Adjustment meeting deferral, the owner submitted a revised heritage permit application to shift the front portion of the dwelling to the west by 4.63 meters to preserve the spruce tree on the eastern property line. As the revision is considered minor in nature, it was approved through the Director of Planning and Development Services. So the applicant's stated reason for not complying with the zoning bylaw is as follows. Certain existing conditions of the site, such as the lot area and lot frontage are existing and therefore not possible to change. The side yard setback, as shown, are required to satisfy the driveway access to the detached garage per the heritage guideline for this area. Moving through the comments that have been received through circulation, the Building Division preliminary zoning review was completed on April the 21st, 2020. Engineering, no objection to the variance application, provided that roof drain spouts for the proposed garage addition be located away from the property line to avoid direct outlet of water onto the adjacent property. Operational services parks, there are trees situated on the subject property that may require removal and may be impacted by excavation or disturbance due to demolition/construction. In view of the above, staff recommend that the committee impose the following conditions if this application is approved, referring to conditions of approval. Central York Fire Services, no comments received at the time of writing of the report. The Region of York has no comments on the application. LSRCA, no comments on the application as it is located outside the area governed by OREG 179-06 under the Conservation Act. And Electric Utility, no objections to its approval. We did have comments received through staff and have been circulated to members of the committee and the applicant. With regards to planning approvals, the planning staff have reviewed the application with respect to section 45, paragraph 1 of the Planning Act as amended, and are of the opinion that the requested variance, do meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act for granting minor variances. Staff recommend approval of the requested variances subject to the conditions as outlined in Appendix A. And Appendix A contains 2 conditions with bullets outlining the concerns that have been raised through the staff circulation. So with that, I will ask the owner or applicant, I believe David Ekbal is with us this evening. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, committee members, staff. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this application. As mentioned by the staff report, this application has gone quite the long distance to get here again. It has been at this committee before, and just want to explain that we have done quite a bit to address all the comments from neighbors, from the committees, Heritage Committee, General Committee, and even your committee. I was told by the client that the previous committee requested a triplex, and I'm just going to present our drawing, which shows a triplex for this application. If you just give me 1 second. So this is basically the
David, just let me interrupt you. I should have asked you at the onset of you joining the meeting, just for the record, your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is David Ekbal. I am an architect with Provision Architecture located at 14961 Youngest Street, Aurora. So yes, sorry
Thank you.
for that. I actually wrote it here to somehow missed it. So yes, we did a lot to address a lot of different criterias and concerns. Basically, what we followed was the heritage guideline to have a detached garage at the rear of the property, similar to all those other neighboring properties as suggested for this neighborhood. We also reduced the building size quite a bit. This building is now 3,300 square feet, almost less than that, which is smaller than a typical single-family dwelling that's been built in and around the town at this time. We have the number of bedrooms in the whole triplex is about, I think I should refer to this because it seems that there are some comments concerning about the traffic and all that. And a typical single family dwelling nowadays, they have 4 or 5 bedrooms. And as you can see on this application, we have 1, 2 on the first floor, and we got 3 bedrooms on the second floor. On the first floor, we have 1 unit, which has access to the basement. And on the second floor, we have 2 units. And so totally, I mean, the number of bedrooms, you consider it comparing to a single family dwelling, makes it quite small relatively or incomparable. I mean, I just want to point out that we did quite a bit to reduce the size and address the comments. We also considered preserving all the trees, even though the arborist report suggested that there are 4 trees on this property, and the arborist report suggests that we remove a couple of trees because one is half dead and the other one gets close to the garage. The fact is, the owner does not intend to remove any of them because we think we can preserve them, because the construction of the garage only gets close to a section of the tree's root system. And I think there is quite a bit of chance that we can actually keep all the trees without any damages. As you would notice in the front, we actually had to move the tree quite a bit. I mean, move the building, shift it in an L-shaped manner, similar to make room for a tree that we intended to keep. We did quite a maneuvering and juggling with the layout, and really did our best to address a lot of the concerns. And as you would notice, we are not asking for any building height because the building is quite reasonable in height. We tampered with the elevations quite a bit to keep it consistent with the look in the neighborhood. And I think probably if you have a single family dwelling, it would still look similar to what we are proposing here. This is nothing really that goes beyond any red lines. We did have some comments from neighbors again, and I think there are some comments that really goes against the zoning bylaw for this area. And I think we should remember that zoning bylaw, before it gets approved, goes through extensive public consultation, and public has a chance to raise their concern against it. I mean, if they don't like it, they should have really raised their voice at the time. And I mean, what we are asking is totally in line with zoning bylaw allows us, or the policies in place allows us to do. We don't want to upset anybody, but we was a year of going back and forth to address all the concerns. And I think we have done quite a bit. As this staff report suggested, we have actually the whole history is in there, that how many times we went to Heritage Advisory Committee and the General Committee, or even the second time in this committee. So we also were at the other committee, which is a design review committee. So we really did quite a bit. And I think, I'm hoping that we can satisfy this committee at this time with what we are here to present. I'm here to address or provide any answers to any questions that the committee members may have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Iqbal. I have to concur with you that the first meeting that we considered the initial application, we did recognize that But we do recognize that the application coming back to us has changed substantially in as much as you're reducing it from a duplex, a semi-detached duplex with 4 units down to 3. And you are here looking for variances to the zoning bylaw, which you are certainly entitled to do. I note that we do have representation from the residents. Mr. Steve Arms is with us this evening. And so I'm going to turn to members of the public to come forward with any comments or questions or concerns. Mr. Arms, I'll turn it over to you first here. I have you on my list, so please go right ahead. I'll just ask that you do your best to respect the 5 minutes for deputations to the committee. So your name, address, and away you go.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I may, I'm just going to share my screen as well. So my name is Stephen Arms, 78 Center Street. I'm the property immediately to the east of this application. My wife, Rebecca Murdoch, and I are the owner residents of here. And just before I begin, I would like to echo the sentiment, Mr. Chair, that you made, that we have seen significant changes since we've been here last year in July. And I would like to recognize Mr. Ekbal, since he joined the applicant's process about 4 or 5 months ago, that quite honestly, we were stuck in a pretty bad quagmire, I think, July of last year. And by bringing in a professional architect, I would like to thank Mr. Ekbal on behalf of the neighbors. I think we've made progress. I still think there are a few things we need to resolve. And in talking with the neighbors on both Catherine Street and Center Street, we believe we're actually very, very close at this point to being able to have a situation where we'd be able to fully endorse it. So I would like to recognize and thank Mr. Ekbal for his efforts. If I may, what I'd like to do is just take an issue. Well, there's really 2 issues we'd like to bring forward. And as I said, I know that the committee and that the town received a couple of emails. I know one came later this afternoon from some other residents, but I am speaking on behalf of the residents of Center Street and Catherine Street. And there's really 2 areas that we'd like to deal with tonight. Can everyone see my the PDF that I'm sharing okay at the moment?
You've got item 1, preservation of existing.
That would be it, yes. My PowerPoint was being a little, I think my PowerPoint was dealing with your computer and being a little bit wonky, so. So if I may, and I'm just bringing this up sort of for historical, but it's going to be really important in a minute. This was the previous proposal that was going to be brought forward and then was deferred because of the problem that initially the applicant brought it forward saying, oh, we think we can keep all the trees. And it actually turned out, according to the arborist report, it was going to have to be a clear cut. So I do appreciate that they've gone back and done some effort, but I would like to keep this as a reference point in a minute. That plan had all 3 of these major trees being removed. Everyone's in agreement that the birch at the front is certainly disposable as part of the redevelopment, and we don't oppose that. But when we look at this new current proposal, there are a couple of things that the neighbors have concerns about. And yes, Mr. Ekbal is correct. With this new jog in sort of the jigsaw puzzle shape of the new dwelling, it does protect the spruce, which we definitely appreciate. But there are still 3 areas that are a bit of a concern. These 2 trees at the back are definitely in peril. And that's a concern, not just because we're in the old Northeast quadrant, not just because they're beautiful trees, but because directly behind on Catherine Street, with these 2nd floor balconies, you're going to be looking into several yards, 2 of which have swimming pools. One has a swimming pool, one's getting a pool in the next month or so. And this will take away a lot of privacy for both 74 and for the homes on Catherine Street. The other area of concern is with this new jigsaw design, we're going from basically a single driveway bulging out to a double driveway. And there's concerns about snow removal. That's not going to be able to have a plowing service get into it. We actually called a couple of plowing services and ran the idea past them. They said that's kind of a no-go. There's no real way to put the snow anywhere. There's no way to drag it back and come around the house. So those things really posed a bit of a problem. So if I go back to the previous plan, there's actually a solution that's staring us all in the face. It was actually mentioned when we were at full council with a different version of these plans around Christmas time. And once we look at it, I'm hoping everyone can see that this might be a solution that can bring everyone together once and for all. And it's as simple as looking in the mirror. And that's literally what we've done. We've taken this plan and mirrored it. So now the house goes towards the west side of the property. The garage comes towards the east. The tree is preserved here, the spruce, which is excellent. And those two trees are no longer impacted by construction of either the house or of the garage. Okay. The other benefit to it is it gives a long straight driveway. Now it is going to have to be a permeable driveway, as many of the committee members may remember, Mr. Chair, when we met with you last July, there'd been a torrential rainstorm that day and we were about ankle deep in water in this area. This is a very, very prone area to flooding. There's basically a river about 6 feet down. So we need to be very careful of that. But by having a soft driveway next to my soft driveway, which I have to keep because of that tree as well, that's going to allow for a great deal of drainage. It also allows for a consistency in look. It would be kind of strange to have one hard driveway on one side and then a soft over here. If you have two permeable ones together of crushed stone, compacted, whatever, we all know there's a multitude of semi-permeable driveway materials. All of a sudden, this improves the drainage over the overall situation. The other aspect of this that I would like the committee to reflect on is back in 2013, 2014, two owners before the current applicant, a plan was brought forward and it was actually permitted that had a long driveway down here to a double car garage in the back. So all we're actually doing is following up on something that Committee of Adjustment agreed to in 2013, 2014. I can't remember the gentleman's last name. His first name is Rocco. He then flipped the house to Marcel Gary, who in turn sold it to the applicant. But simply by mirroring this, and my measurements may be slightly off, all I did was use Photoshop to flip it. I would defer to Mr. Ekbal as far as what the measurements would be, but it certainly seems that we have an option here that would maintain all of the trees, give a much clearer driveway, and it's one of their own plans. I mean, it's actually quite an attractive house. And when I took these ideas that we all put together as a group on the street and on Catherine Street and ran it around, it was almost a bit of a eureka moment. We can be concerned about the trees. We can be concerned about the flooding, which is definitely an area. And there's still a way, many people aren't thrilled about a triplex, but this is something people say, yeah, I could support this if we do these sorts of things. So I'm hopeful that perhaps Mr. Ekbal and his client could look at that. This is your plan mirrored. So it should be relatively easy to do. Now, the second item is a little more contentious, and it goes on and has gone on for a few years. And if we look at the survey that is submitted with this application, it's from pre-2015. And the way I know it's pre-2015 is one of the reference points says storage tents. Now, the owner of this house before me, Rebecca and I bought this house on April 30th, 2015, had two carport storage tents in the driveway. They were hideous. I can tell you they came down the morning of May 2nd, 2015, because it was the first thing we did once we got moved into the house. There was an issue in 2018. I don't want to belabor the point. It caused quite a rift between the applicant and myself. Unfortunately, police were involved when he said that our driveway and our pool house was on his property. But we undertook a new survey in July of 2018 with Abdelaziz surveying. This is the actual overall plan. At the same time the survey was done, we had the property line staked. And the reason we did that is we decided to have a privacy fence. The applicant's been renting this house for a long time. We've had some very colorful renters, and my wife and family and I wanted to have some privacy. So after consulting with Mr. Faraji, we built the fence 1 inch inside the property line. My wife has her finger on the steel peg that was found by the surveyor. It's been there since 1863. And along with this survey peg put in by the surveyor and this one at the back represents the true, accurate, and current survey. Now, this is also on file with the town for a very important reason. We're undertaking the planning of building a garage. And obviously one of the requirements is using the most current survey. I'm a little confused why we've had so much difficulty. There's an email chain of months back in 2018 at the time the survey was coming in, but it's already staked. It was put in 4 years ago with the applicant's understanding and approval after my wife and I paid for the survey, paid for the fence, and shared that information with them. It would make sense to me, it would seem, to clear that up at the same time, because if I'm going forward with the 2018 survey, and the applicants continue to use a different one, it's going to get bogged down again. What I really think we have is a situation here where there's a plan that the applicant has brought forward that if we mirror it, might need a little bit of tweaking. The neighbors are going to be behind. And then there's just the situation, and it serves a lot of purposes. The parking issue, the preservation of the trees, the drainage, all the things that we all want in this, okay? And historically, it matches something that the Committee of Adjustment and the town have approved in the past, which is a driveway up this east side to a detached double garage at the back, all right? To me, I think we are so close. If we could get those couple of things, and in speaking with the other neighbors involved, we're going to defer to the committee as far as setbacks and things like that, where it's not materially impacting the vegetation or the property line. That's your area of expertise, not ours. Our concern is, can we please have a design that the applicant has previously brought forward, simply mirror it, move along those ways, and that's something that the neighborhood can wholeheartedly support and would welcome finally having the redevelopment there. And I'm sure the applicant and Mr. Ekbal, I'm sure has better things to do on Thursday evenings as well, like cheering for the Leafs. Sorry, I had to get that in there. That we can actually move this forward, and that this can actually represent an incredibly positive aspect of the redevelopment and possible intensification of the Northeast Heritage Area. Thank you. I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arms. Appreciate that. I'll just remind you that, and you would probably have remembered this from previous deputations, the committee has to rely on the information as provided by the applicant. The town relies on that, and the committee relies on that. When it comes to disputes, particularly property lines and surveys and whose is the most accurate, particularly when there is a discrepancy, this committee can't rule on that. This committee isn't empowered to say that what we've got is either correct or incorrect. We're relying on it like, like the town does. And that's based on the information that we have before us.
Mr. Chair, I understand that. I just wanted to really emphasize, I believe we are close.
Yeah, now, and I appreciate that. And let me just clear one other thing before we start any conversation. Is there any other member of the public with us this evening that wishes to address the committee? I don't believe there was anybody else, Brushanti, am I correct?
Through the chair, you're correct. We have no more members from the public.
Great. Okay. I do note that the owner of the property is also in attendance at the meeting as well. So just so that the chair can recognize that that the owner is here. All right. Let me go to the members of the committee. I've got a lineup of things myself, but maybe between the members of the committee and by the time it gets to me, things will have flushed themselves out. So I'll look to the members of the committee first for comments to the applicant, or comments or questions that have been brought forward. David, please go right ahead.
Through the chair, I don't have questions, but I just have comments. So I'll thank the owner's representative, I think David Ekuba, for the presentation. And for the same information, the chair, you mentioned about the history, that this fire has been there for a long time. And he has gone through the heritage committees, the design review committee, the general committee, even ourselves, we have looked at this. And it seems most of the matters, or most, to me, almost all the concerns were somehow addressed. The second comment is, it's good that you mentioned, you made it very clear that the committee looks at the application which is in front of us and has got 3 specific variances. That's one is about the minimum lot area size. The second one is about the minimum lot frontage. And then the last one is about the interior side yard setback. That's what it is in front of the committee. The other things which, of course, they're nice to hear, or the things which we can sympathize with, but these are the things which we are looking at. So in my view, based on the history which the chair mentioned, and is actually in the staff's report, I'm seeing that the client has really done a lot to address what is suspected to be, expected for the client to address. Things about the trees. I hear that I read that the trees will be preserved, and of course, I would concur with me, Mr. Is it Mr. or could be Doctor? I'm not sure, but Steve Armes, he provided that plan of the alternating flipping, which really looks nice. But why is it coming at this time? Was it not discussed before with the applicant? Because it really looks nice. Because we flip, all the trees are free, and that comparing those driveways close together with pavements, they're nice. But it's not in front of us now. So those are my just general comments. I'll say thank you.
Thank you, David. Stephen, go right ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would like to also echo a lot of the comments made here tonight. I mean, there's clearly been a lot of progress here, and a lot of my concerns have been addressed. I do have a couple of challenges, Mr. Ekbal, just with some of your statements. One, that when you say that what you're proposing is permitted by the zoning, well, it isn't, and that's why we're here today. You're applying for a minor variance, and you mentioned that the applicant said that we as a committee requested a triplex, and no, that's not entirely accurate either. We just noted that the gross floor area was a significant variance to allow a fourplex, which was what was presented to us initially. So we simply mentioned that if you look at the chart, it would be, I believe it's not in the staff report, I don't believe now, but I believe it would permit a duplex, but not a triplex or a fourplex, if I'm not mistaken. But that said, I look at what's before us here today, and I do see a lot of progress. I see, while it's not, we're not here to look at, design or materials. I think it's something that could fit into the area. I think the variances that are being asked for here are minor in terms of, if you look at, the gross floor area, or sort of the area required and the frontage required. It is for a triplex. The variances are minor. I do appreciate the efforts to maintain the trees. Now, the one thing that you've said that there's no intention to remove the trees, but what I've seen many times is no intention, and then trees are removed, and we just pay, the applicant pays, the tree replacement costs to the town. For me to fully support this application, I would need to amend one of the conditions in the report. I think it's condition number 2, and it would be to add to the existing text, just to say that the trees on the east property line and to the rear of the property will be maintained, or are to be maintained. I think we all agree, and it sounds like the neighbors agree, that the tree at the front of the house is in distress and may need to be taken down. So that would be my condition, and I think the neighbor, Mr. Arms, does raise some good points in terms of privacy, and obviously that spruce to the east of the property has been a significant focal point, and I would hate to, and we've talked about it, there's the root system is quite significant and quite elevated. So I think it's going to take some work and some thinking there. And I would like that to be reflected in one of the conditions, that those trees will be maintained. Beyond that, I would just say, look, we need some higher density housing. The variances are minor. And I would agree with my colleague, David here. I think there is a good proposal here. The challenge, I think, Mr. Arms here is even if everybody were to agree to that tonight, it would require taking this away again and re-looking at the variances. And so I'll leave that up to the applicant and his agent to address. It does look like a very, just at first glance, a good solution. However, in terms of the snow removal, who knows? They could do it by hand with a snow blower and achieve that. So your suggestion makes sense to me, but that's not what's before us today. So just to summarize, and through you, Mr. Chair, I'll ask the applicant if the applicant would be comfortable with the amendment to the condition saying that just stating clearly that the trees to the east and the rear of the property are to be maintained, which I think is consistent with what they're telling us today.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could confirm that we are actually for that motion and we do support it. We will keep all the trees.
Okay. Thank you. With that, those are all my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Daniel, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll start with the same comment as my colleagues and expand on a different one. The presentation made by Mr. Arms on behalf of the neighbors does make a lot of sense. It does bring forward some fresh ideas that would probably work. However, we can't look at that, and we would have to look at the applicant to make a motion. So we have to look at what we have in front of us. So just as a comment to Mr. Arms on behalf of the neighbors, that's how we are all looking, or how we have to act as per our mandate. That being said, I do have, I'll make a little preamble and then a question to go along with it. I'm probably known on this committee as the individual who puts cars last in terms of their priority into a city, to a development, and to a community. I believe that with the train seconds away, and sorry, I was just made aware that the Leafs tied the game. That with the being so close to the downtown core, having availability to transportation and everything else, that we should not be developing a home with or a condo or a triplex or an apartment with a 2-car per door mandate. I believe we are finally moving away from that, which is great. That being said, I do have a question in terms of the fact that there are 3 apartments to this triplex, obviously, and there are 2 garages. To Mr. Iqbal, what is your strategy for those 2 parking spots? Because I am to assume, based on what I'm seeing on the plans, that you are not allowing anybody to park on the driveway. So are you doing a first come, first serve? Is the first story, which has the multiple bedrooms, automatically get a parking spot? I'll also make the comment that obviously we maybe an advantage of having a Canadian winter is that we're not going to be pushing cars to the road, because there's only maybe 8 months of the year that you can do that. So that's not a appropriate way forward. So I'll ask Mr. Iqbal, can you please expand on how your client is thinking of making those 2 parking spots available to the 3 tenants?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Daniel, for the question. Actually, I think with this long driveway and the way we have laid it out, there are plenty of room for 4 cars to be parked, 2 on the driveway and 2 inside the garage. But the fact is that our client is intending to occupy one of the units of the 3 units, and his father will be occupying 1 unit, and the 3rd unit would be rented out. And his father really doesn't need transportation, extra car, because it's part of the same family. And my client is, actually, we have discussed this matter, and that's what his strategy is, to have only 1 car for the 2 units. But I mean, even with that, we actually have possibility of being able to park 4 cars. And I could actually show it on the site plan where we, I think that could be done. As you would note, there is a, actually the chart we created in the building right behind this section. There is a possibility that 1 car would be parked there because it's still wrong way to the parking. There is another location right in front, which would be this one. So we have considered that, and I think we have a lot of room with this long driveway to actually manage the parking that is expected.
Okay, you took a different direction than what I was anticipating, which is quite interesting. Okay, so the comment about having Mr., I believe his name is pronounced Faraji, if not, I apologize, being a family plus 1 unit is interesting. And in terms of the long-term or a potential future with a different owner, there's a difference there. I can understand the first parking. I'm a little concerned of having a vehicle parked in the front as the designated parking. I don't think that would fit the streetscape of the neighborhood to have a vehicle right there. So that does bring up a concern. I do not have any concerns with one in the nook of the building there. But yeah, okay, sorry, you took a little bit of a different direction than I anticipated. Okay, so with that said, Mr. Chair, I'll step aside and we're just going to look at some of the photos I took of the property a couple of days ago, and I'll cede the rest of my time. Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to come back, Daniel, you're more than welcome, as you know.
Thank you.
Okay, Linda, see your hand up there, so please go right ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I've walked the property a couple of times and looked around, and I find it really hard to understand how that garage can possibly be built where it's situated on the property with the 2 trees. I also noticed that the tree in the northwest corner doesn't really show the canopy of it. That's actually there. The canopy as well of the one that is in front of the garage, that is a really large tree. The canopy, the umbrella of the tree per se, it covers 3/4 of the property, not just this little corner that's indicated on this. It's a very big, with very large branches, and it really covers. I stood out. The branches come out to in front of that existing shed that's to be demolished at the back. That's quite a long way. It would be completely destroyed if you did the 2-car garage, or you would cut it to a stump. I don't think that's possible. I know you said you want to save it. I don't see the possibility of that happening, not with the size of it. I mean, that's 3 people would have to stand around that tree to, to hug it, to touch. With that canopy will go right over the balcony of the new proposed second story. That's how big that tree is. The one on the north side, on the east side, I agree with what Steve said, that there has to be some kind of amendment to the appendix that says you cannot touch it. It's a longer tree, taller, not such a big canopy over it. So the root system is still established under there. You're still going to, I don't understand how you're going to build that, get down there. If you're going to protect that tree, you're going to have to come out a long way, and then just to put the border up around the tree to protect it so no one drives over it or the concrete truck doesn't come through, will be the actual where your footings are. And I don't understand how you're going to actually manipulate that to do that, because you can't even, because it's not a concrete surface on top. You have a poor situation with gravel and everything to go through. It can't handle that kind of a weight thing. I don't have an answer for you, but I know that this would be very difficult for that to accommodate the construction end of it. Maybe if you could plop this thing down from the heavens and come down on it, I think it would be fine. But that's not the case here. And I looked and I thought, I appreciate how much time it's taken to go through your plans, try to change the plans, put a car here, put a driveway here, change the parking lot. I get it all. I just somehow in my head, I feel that by looking at it, and I have studied this, I want to give you, justify what you're doing here. It's almost like it's the wrong plan for the wrong property. Like, this is a beautiful property that you put together. I mean, a building you put together. These trees are in your way. It just seems like it might just not work. I can't see how it worked. I like the way you've tried to amend the plan. I appreciate it, but I do not think the diagrams are correct for those two trees, especially the one on the west side. And there's not even marked in the one in the back corner. I just don't see it. It doesn't show it as it is. But anyway, I think my colleagues have mentioned all the other little concerns I had, so I'll leave it at that and say thank you. But I don't see how you can do that without damaging the two trees. Thank you.
Mr. Iqbal, did you want to respond? I thought I saw your hand go up there.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to respond to that. Just past year, we did 2 garages that are using floating foundations. Basically, as per Ontario Building Code, if a building less than 500 square feet, you're allowed to do a floating foundation, which means that you do not need to dig deep into the ground to do a full height, 4 feet below grade foundation. This system actually uses a slab thickening around the perimeter of the slab. It just sits under. So it's a system that's done for small buildings, especially garages to this size. And this garage that we are proposing is less than 500 square feet. And I think that way we are not really damaging any tree roots, to be honest. We have thought about that, how to deal with that. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And I know what a slab foundation is as well. I've seen them, and I mean, most sheds and garages would have that kind of a thing, go down deep like it would be for a house with the footings and everything. Understood. I appreciate that. Anything about the tree on the east side about the construction comment at all?
The tree on the east side, we have talked to the arborist. They asked for the certain radius so that you can keep it, and that's what we have provided. is according to arborist demand for the radius that we have to provide. And it is also a town of Aurora's recommendation that you provide, I think, 3.5, but the arborist asked for 4.3. We actually provided more space than what is the town bylaw requires. Thank you.
Sorry,
Mr. Chair.
through the chair, that means you, for digging around it is what you're saying, or driving over it? That radius, are you saying, is untouchable?
That radius is meant that any structure built to that, I mean, no closer to that perimeter.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Coming back to, let me go back just to Daniel there first. I think he's been doing his research there while we've been.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, yes, luckily I took some photos from the point of view of the residents away. So I was able to see neighbors. So I will, my concern and fear about parking in front, if it's done architecturally nice, will fit into the neighborhood. So I'm not really adding much to this conversation in the second part, but I just wanted to go back and looking at the neighbors across the streets. There was a similar, in my photos, a similar type of situation. So I would encourage, apologies again if I'm butchering your name, Mr. Faraji, but if the Faraji family, 3 dwellings, try to stay to those 2, 3, 4 cars, but obviously that's, I just want to ensure that we're not turning it into a long driveway or a long parking lot. I think that would be, it would negate a lot of the work that you've done with your community at this point. And I would encourage you to keep to the 2, 3, 4 cars and stick to that. So with that, thank you for the additional time, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to come back and state that my concern has been alleviated thanks to some well-placed photography.
All right, thank you actually for bringing it back and bringing it forward. Appreciate the work on the run. Not only your chairmanship capabilities, but your work on the run. Steve, I did see your hand back up again. So let's.
Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I do have a question for staff, but I do want to, Daniel, your line of questioning gave me real pause for thought. I hadn't realized that there's the potential for a car to be parked in front of the house beside the driveway, and I'm not sure that's really in keeping with the neighborhood and the design to have a parking lot at the front of the house, essentially. And that gives me real pause in the designs. I like you, Daniel, I don't have an issue with the jog in the back and parking a car potentially backing it up, but I have a problem with the driveway as it is. It's not a driveway, it's essentially it's a parking spot at the front of the house. And that's, to me, that's not in keeping with the design of the neighborhood. Question for staff, through you, Mr. Chair, if I could direct a question to staff. If we were to introduce a condition, and we've done it in the past, that said trees are to be maintained, and in the hypothetical situation, trees are to be maintained in their current form, and in line with what Linda was saying, we do have some questions. It's not for us to question, if it would be, the construction methods, but we are dictating that the trees must be maintained in their current form for this approval to go through. Should those trees be damaged or removed, what would the process be at that point in time through construction? If it is a condition of this report that they're maintained, and for some reason they're not maintained, they're trimmed back, and that was the justification and the strict condition in the report, a condition of approval, what would happen next?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Well, I mean, the trees couldn't be damaged if that was a condition of approval. The onus is on the applicant and the owner to ensure that that doesn't happen. So if that is a condition of approval, it's the responsibility of the owner to ensure that that condition is being met. To answer your question in terms of recourse, I don't have that answer for you right now. I'm not sure if it would, if the approval would be null and void because they weren't meeting their conditions of approval. So I believe that would more than likely be the end result, that the approval no longer is in effect.
Thank you, Sean, and through you, Mr. Chair. That was exactly what I was wondering here, because I mean, obviously, we've got some very invested community in this process, and I think to the applicant, I think you have to be comfortable here. You're saying that no trees will be, will be harmed, and like we're at least as a condition of approval, I would amend to say that the trees to the rear of the property and the east are to be maintained. And should the community see that the trees are not being maintained in their current form, and you've heard from the committee that, a lot of members have concerns about the trees, I think at the point that they are starting to be damaged, you're going to have neighbors contacting the town, and we'll be right back here again. So to the point we said earlier, there's another suggestion made by the neighbor, by Mr. Arms. It's not before us today. So I think the way that I'm seeing this, we have a couple of options. We go forward, we impose a condition that I think some people have some really some concerns that they can be met, conditions of approval. If that were to happen and the application approved, and then you don't meet those conditions, we're back here again, right? And I think the construction will stop very quickly based on what I'm seeing from the community involvement. Probably a stop work order, and we come back here again with another minor variance. Or there's a suggestion on the table, to essentially flip the drawings and potentially come back and have a better solution that addresses the concerns tonight, and probably would give everybody more comfort that the conditions could be met. So those are just observations, and I'm clear on where I stand, and what I would, what I would be proposing tonight if there is a motion to approve. I would strongly suggest, Mr. Ekbal and Mr. Faraji, that you consider yourselves, if you believe that you can maintain the trees in their current form. Okay, that would be my comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may respond.
Yes.
Well, I understand that there is a proposal against us. Right after, in fact, in the general committee meeting, we expressed that we are willing to flip the design. And unfortunately, at that time, Mr. Arms did not come forward with the agreement for that. And in fact, we did that to reduce traffic toward Mr. Arms' property as a gesture of goodwill. And we proceeded with this design quite a bit. And we were in communication with planning. And in fact, we proposed, and the planning wanted to actually, but I mean, what I'm trying to say, we have been open to that, but not at this late date. I mean, we have gone through quite a bit, and it's been a lot of time. I mean, why didn't Mr. Arm come forward earlier saying that that's what he wants? I mean, we were willing to do it. I mean, Yeah, but one of the issues that we were having was if we put the driveway on that side, first the design committee meeting, they told us, let's keep the driveway where it is right now to minimize the disturbance. That's what we did originally, and we kind of continued with the same driveway layout. And frankly, we listened, and sometimes when these things go for too long, there are a lot of comments, a lot of suggestions, and at this time, I know Mr. Faraji agrees with me, and he cannot, he said, or can speak, but we are willing to accept the tree condition that we will maintain the trees, and we just don't want to go around this circle anymore. If you'll be supporting that, you'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iqbal. One of the things I'm I see your hand up, Mr. Arms. You've brought your concerns forward, and you've come up with some ideas here.
Mr. Chair, I was just hoping on a point of order. Actually, the night of the committee meeting with General Committee, there's a text exchange which is on the record and council has between myself and Mr. Faraji, where Councillor Gilliland, Mayor Maracas all suggested that idea. Mr. Faraji said he would go away. Sounds like it could be doable. Yes, he did say we want to keep the traffic away from your side.
Sure.
We said the neighbors were more interested in the preservation. So I'm sorry, as a point of order, saying we've never brought it up. There's already documentation in front of council. We did.
Okay, but we're not dealing with. Okay, well, I'm not dealing.
I understand, Mr. Chair.
Right. I mean, but I'll make the point. We're not dealing with information that's coming to us through hearsay or council or the Heritage Committee or any external discussions that may or may not have taken place with the residents. We have documented comments. We have your documented comments. We have documented comments that have come to us in a consolidated fashion, thanks to staff that have brought this forward. We've had a variety of comments that were made at our previous meeting, and then followed up with a deferral request from staff in order to get clarity on the arborist's position. So if I can, Steve, one of the things that that we've gone around this before, and I'll bet you Prashanti is in the wings ready to say it, so I'll say it for her. We have to be careful as a committee that if we do impose a condition, that it can be enforced. In other words, you must do this, but those trees could be hit by lightning. And so the trees, couldn't be protected, from an act of nature. And I don't think anyone would object if, something like as bizarre as that happened. I think we'd be all upset if a cement truck backed into one of those trees and pushed it over and what have you. Then there would be some, eyebrows raised for sure, and there would be some recourse that would be taken. It would probably be, civil rather than something that the town could do. But we have to be careful adding a condition that requires the owner to guarantee, because I don't think that's something that we can hang our hat on as a committee and expect that it could be protected to the 100% level. I'm a little bit hesitant in doing that. I prefer to, in looking at the conditions, they are very clear conditions. They require the applicant to carry out measures to protect those trees. And there are, I'm not a tree expert, so I can just suggest to all of the members of the committee that if an arborist comes forward and says you can't get any closer than 4.3 meters to this particular area or this point on the ground in order to protect tree or protect its roots or protect the viability of the tree, I would defer to those experts. I would suggest that we have to trust their expert opinions on it. And I guess I'm going to go full circle here and say, with respect to what the committee had suggested the owner do, and I actually will admit that it was me who said, I would be more comfortable supporting a triplex than a semi-detached duplex or a duplex. I thought it was a little too dense. And the areas, the amenity spaces and what have you, the parking spaces that would be required, it didn't make sense to me as a planner. So, I wouldn't have been able to have supported that application. Question to to Mr. Iqbal, if I may. The driveway that you're proposing here, is that going to be permeable surface?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We actually decided, to go through these site plan approval to actually deal with those items. If the town engineering kind of suggests that that would be an appropriate way to proceed, we'll actually do that. But it's also the site servicing engineer that has to kind of come up with a plan to manage the surface water and waters. So we are open to that. There's nothing set for that, actually.
I guess the reason I'm bringing it up, and I think without some of the other members of the committee actually saying it, when we're talking about, areas of the property that are being disturbed and long driveways and garages and what have you, the viability of those trees also depends on the root systems getting water. And so I know that some projects that I personally worked on, one of the things that we had done was even more than permeable. It allowed grass to grow. For example, just to make it graphically easier for everyone to understand, take a concrete block, turn it on its side, and allow soil to establish and grass to grow in and around it. You still have a surface that's drivable. However, it is very permeable, and it allows the water to get into those areas that could be recharging the root systems of trees. And in that part of our community where some of those trees are just irreplaceable, and to be able to say, well, I will guarantee you that they will, we can put a condition in that will guarantee that we won't damage those trees and that they will be there. You look at alternatives to trying to give everybody and the trees a chance to survive and to give your neighbors a better feel in the community that's more typical of what is already there. I think you've done a great job. And I'm prepared to support the application. I think you've addressed almost all of the concerns that I had, from the original application. I think that having you on board, certainly makes me feel a little bit more comfortable with the architecture that you're proposing. very familiar with slab on grade or modified slab on grade for things like garage. I think that goes a long way. I think Linda mentioned that and understands that. I think we all do. So I'm at a point, I think, where I would actually just support it as is, knowing that we do have the conditions there that require some very serious on-site management during construction and post-construction. David, I noticed that you had your hand up. Yeah. Let me go to David.
Yeah,
First.
so thank you through the chair. This is just a question to staff, and it's just sort of hypothetical, but it may happen. I know it has happened one project I know sometime back, but I'm just hypothetical. Let's say we approve this application as it is now, and let's say the applicant, based on what Mr. Arms presented, and the applicant sees that, okay, I think that seems to be a good idea, because I don't have to even think about or worry about trees and so on, because they'll be far away. If they say the applicant at that time thinks that, okay, maybe I should just flip the building, because it's a good idea. I don't have to have all these headaches about the trees. What process will the applicant do? Will they again come to committee, or will it just be something we deal with as part of the site plan application and deal with the town? Because I've seen in one case, but I don't want to quote it, whereby something was approved, but later on the applicant and the local municipality, they saw something was good and they supported, and it was just done with the town staff and the applicant, and it was for the good for the town, the applicant, and even for the neighbors. So it may look like a hypothetical question, but this may happen if we really Mr. David Iqbal and the Mr. Hassan Faraji think that maybe that's a good idea. So I'm just asking to know if something like that happens, what will be the process from the town point of view?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in the event that there are any changes in the future, this could only come back to committee if variances are required.
Okay.
If variances are not required, then it would come to staff, more than likely through the site plan application process, and staff would deal with it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think it may still come, because if you look at the variances, they have nothing to do with the trees. The variances, they are talking about the minimum size of the lot, the frontage, and the maybe this interior setback may not be an issue probably. Maybe it may be because it's something to do with the garage. But anyway, I thought of just asking, because I've heard about it, or I've seen about it, similar case where later on the applicant say, I think that was a good idea. It will not give me a headache about dealing with these other issues, and it's good for the town, and it's good for the neighbors. So I just thought of just asking. Thank you.
No problem at all.
Yeah, thank you, David. Steve?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just to address your comments, regarding the conditions as is, and I'll certainly explain, why I believe the condition, and to David's comment, you're absolutely right. The variances here do not talk about the trees. It's the conditions that talk about the trees. And one of the key concerns by the community, and it talks to privacy of the people behind, right? It talks to a shared tree on a shared, it actually spans both properties. So I do think the trees are a concern here. And to your point, Mr. Chair, there's nothing in the conditions that say that the trees need to be preserved. It says that the trees, essentially, that they could trim them right back to a stump, right? They could trim them to allow a garage, and these are huge trees. And there are some doubts, I believe, I think that we need to be clear here. If a tree happens to be damaged by a chainsaw, you know, and we've seen it. We've seen trees where people just go in and they cut them down and they say, oh, I'm sorry to the town. What is it, $50? And you just plant another tree somewhere else. Well, these trees are critical to this neighborhood and to the property. And there's a condition there. The condition in my mind is lacking. And it's in one of the clearest components here. The applicant is on record saying that they will maintain the trees. It's critical to all of the neighbors. It's critical to the feeling of the neighborhood. And I think, and we've done it before, that we've said, and we've got an applicant that's willing to accept it. I think we need to state that the trees need to stay, right? And if they don't stay, right, then staff has told us, then it comes back to us because it's now a condition of the minor variance, and the house can't be built, right, without it, you know, or unless the committee accepts it. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, if that condition isn't, satisfactory to the committee, or they don't believe it's appropriate, or if the town doesn't believe it's appropriate or could be enforced, or, you know, I would respectfully disagree, but I will essentially, I will go with the committee in terms of how the motion is proposed, and I will vote accordingly. I think that's the best way to do it.
And I appreciate that, Steve. I just, you know, I just caution the committee when we put a condition in that we may have a hard time, or the town may have a hard time accepting in terms of its ability to apply that condition. David, I think you wanted to jump in just for a second there. Mr. Iqbal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do appreciate, I mean, Steve, David, I mean, and even Mr. Arms, you know, requesting with a change for the design. I think I have a solution here. If the committee here approves the what we are risking, we are asking for the variances. We propose to flip the house, maintaining the same variances. That means the garage, variance for the garage and everything else be approved here. And so that we don't, I mean, we can go forward with less time spent. We approve the variances, and you can put the condition that if the house design be flipped as proposed by Mr. Arms, and then we can actually maintain the variances by actually flipping it and making everybody happy, and then the subject of the tree would be resolved, I guess. But the design would be changed. I mean, that's the thing.
So here, appreciate that. And I think here's what your options are, if that's something that you would entertain. And it would, I think it would make the residents happy. But whenever we do something like this and we change things, we flip the house, we move the garage to the other side, I believe that we would have to recirculate. And I think we would have to bring it back to the committee. It would be a deferral request that you would make of the committee. There would have to be a recirculation. And we'd also have to, and when I say recirculation, we would have to go to the public, because you're changing it. You're not changing the frontage request. You're not I know and you're not even probably changing the request on the variance for the garage separation from the property line. But I do think that we would have to recirculate, and it would have to be managed through a deferral, which means it would be up to staff. I'm going to ask them. I don't know that we could get it back to the next committee meeting, but it might be the following. Let me go to Sean. Sean, I think that's the only way we can do it, because if we flip it, you're changing the design. Or let me go to Prashanthi. we're changing the design, I think we would have to go through another recirculation. Am I correct?
Through the chair, I was just going to comment on the next available committee of adjustment meetings, if a deferral would be the decision here. So we would be looking at going into the July meeting, but I believe what Mr. Ekbal was suggesting is that with the variances that are requested today, that by flipping the site design so that like Mr. Arm suggested, the driveway is on the east side, that the variances, if they were to be approved today, will be maintained in the new design. I do want to say that this proposal is subject to site plan approval, and that through the site plan approval process, there will be a zoning review. So through that time, so if committee was to approve the variances today, and if Mr. Ekbal changes the site design so that it's flipped, and through the zoning review of the site plan process, if it's determined that any variances are needed, then we would come back. But I think, and I could be wrong, Mr. Ekbal, you can correct me. I'm assuming that you are willing to assume those risks and moving forward with an outcome today, and then moving forward with the site plan application and coming back later. That's what I'm hearing. So I'll let Mr. Ekbal confirm.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you, Prashante. What I'm suggesting is that we get the approval for the variances we requested, and we are not proposing to change the variances to come back to this committee. We will flip the house, maintaining the variances. I think the only thing that would trigger to come back here if we are asking for changing the variances. So if you entertain the idea that it could be approved for the variances, we also promise to change as a condition into the design that we flip the house driveway to the other side and maintain the approved variances. I think that is something that I can do to satisfy everyone.
I like the idea of doing it that way. The only thing that you're risking in doing it that way is if you came back and for whatever reason, the variance that we would grant for the garage, for example, due to positioning or what have you, that might have to be revisited, but it would be done through the site plan review process and then come back to us. I think we would also have to say that our variances are conditional to flipping the house. So we would have to add a condition that recognizes that the variances that we're granting are not to the design that we're seeing, it's to a design that shows the house flipped. Right? Okay.
Yes.
David Mango.
Yeah, so I just want to add what you through the chair to add or just comment. I think what Mr. David Kubo is saying, let's say for the first two ones, it's the same lot, it's the same area, the same size. So if we approve now, it will be the same. So they'll be just carried over. We don't have to do anything because it's the same. The only one, as you have said, if they can change is number C, but if they keep that 0.6 meter, if we approve now, it will be that 0.6 meter is not going to change. That's what Mr. Akibo is saying. So in other words, we approve now with those that and put a condition that it will be flipped. And I think that's it. It's because just flipping, the variations are the same. It's minimum lot, minimum frontage. They will not change anything.
Right.
You have several designs. It's the same lot. It's not going to change. And
Right.
the same building, it's not going to change.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought of just commenting that. Thank you.
Okay. Stephen?
Yeah, and I really hate to play devil's advocate here, but you know, the variance that we have is for the garage for the side yard setback, right? Sorry if I'm looking here. Let me just, I'm sorry, I must have shut down somehow my, oh no, here it is. So the variance at the minimum side yard setback, which is 0.6 for the detached garage. If I look at it now, we're looking at moving the house over. It would actually be the house that's going to be the 0.6, and the garage it's going to be on the other side. Or you're talking about the garage is going to be a 0.6 on
Yeah.
the other side.
Correct.
So it's still an interior side yard setback just on the other side.
Correct.
I got you. Okay, I makes sense to me. Makes sense to me.
Linda, additional comment?
Yeah, through you, through the chair. I have trouble with deciding on something that has not been approved by staff or looked at through staff. The flipping, they've never seen it. The arborist hasn't seen it. The reports haven't been seen. You know what? I appreciate Mr. Arms and the plans, and it looks like it's a good thing. But at the same time, his green arrows aren't provided by our experts that provide the information for us to make our decisions on. Looking at a plan that it was pretty small on my screen, but you know, I get the gist of it. I hope that it would be right, but I don't really know that. I'm taking someone's word for it that it'll be exactly the same on someone else's side without being investigated. I'm not, you know, that's how I'm looking at this. You know, it's not a.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and I think where this actually gives staff a chance to review this is at site plan application. The conditions still are still there. Those conditions that relate to, you know, arborist conditions and trees and their protection, they're still there. They're still part of what we're doing. So I hear what you're saying. If staff were prepared to accept the reduced, for example, the reduced frontage and the lot area, whether it's this way or that way, I don't know that would affect staff quite, you know, as much as if it were a different side yard setback. I can see that being an issue. Or, yeah, if the garage we weren't, you know, it wasn't able to meet that 0.6, then that would certainly have to come back to the committee, you know, again. Yeah, I think staff have had a good look at it, and I think the two main criteria for the variances that we're looking at wouldn't be affected if it were flipped. In fact, I think that the owner could do that even without us requiring it. I think that's you know, that's something, as I said, I think that can be dealt with at site plan.
The other comment that I had through the chair that I wanted to mention as well was that in the Appendix A on the conditions of approval, it's right in there as well that the owner may be required to provide vegetation compensation and a replanting plan in accordance with the town tree removal pruning and compensation policy to the satisfaction of the director, as compensation for trees removed to facilitate construction. Compensation planning shall be, so it's already been planned ahead. The owner shall agree to comply with, you know, the bylaw 5850 prior to the removal. So we still get into that. Here's your money. I just cut your tree down, or I damaged your tree. It's okay. It's in here. It's in the bylaw here. It says that all I have to do is fix it up. I mean, I have issues with that, but through you, that's all. It says it right in the appendix that we're supposed to vote on and say whether you agree with that or not, or you think that's the right thing to do. And it's right in there saying, well, if they don't do it, all they have to do is go through this and do this. I get it. But anyway, okay, I'll thank you.
No problem. All right, I think we've covered the bases. I think we've actually done a fair amount of work with the cooperation of the applicant and his architect, quite frankly. So I'll look to the committee then for a motion on this application. Steve.
Thank you. Bear with me here. I'm just going to go through it. So with respect to minor variance application MV-2021-18, 74 Center Street, I move that we approve the application with the following modification to condition 2, where the starting the first bullet with the following text. The trees to the east and north of the property are to be maintained in their current form with only minimal pruning permitted. And then the remaining condition would be maintained. And that's my motion. I am certainly open to friendly amendments.
Okay, I'll look to the committee if there are any friendly amendments or a seconder. David,
I second the motion.
seconding the motion.
Yes, I second the motion without any amendments. So I agree with whatever he said.
Okay, thank you. Calling the question, all of those in favor? Against? So we have 4 members of the committee voting in for, 1 member voting against. So the application is approved. Thank you all for being here. I know we had a lengthy discussion, but I think it was very fruitful. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ekbal, and very well done.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Chair and everyone. It was a long discussion, but thank you very much. I appreciate everything you have done. Thank you.
Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you.
All right, committee members. So we're at item 7. Is there any new business for the committee this evening? And seeing nothing, anything from staff? Prashanti, anything from staff under new business?
For you, that's a negative from staff.
All right, thank you. I will look to the committee for a motion to adjourn. David, all in favor?